Hello and thanks for joining us. My name is Rick Kenny, I'm with Salesforce, and today I'm joined by Jason Pulowski from Wolverine Worldwide. Thanks for joining us, Jason.
Thanks, Rick.
And first of all, do you want to talk a little bit about Wolverine and what you guys are up to?
Sure. So Wolverine is the third largest footwear company in the world. We have 12 brands, various lifestyle and performance footwear from Merrell and Sperry down to Saucony, Hush Puppies, Cat Footwear, Wolverine boots, and a few others. We've been a Salesforce Commerce Cloud, previously Demandware customer since 2014 when we launched our first site. Over 18 months from 2014 to 2015, we launched all 12 brands on a shared code base and core architecture. And since then, we've kind of been working to stabilize and now accelerate the business in that space.
And how many total sites live globally right now?
It kind of ebbs and flows depending on the global market, but at launch we had over 70 sites because we have owned territories throughout Europe as well as Canada and the US, so multiple currencies, multiple languages, multiple countries, quite a portfolio.
Excellent. Now, one of the things I found interesting that you really accomplished last year was you changed the planning model. You actually shifted quite dramatically from kind of the old world waterfall method towards Agile. Can you talk about why you wound up doing that and how it worked out?
Yeah, sure. So you're right, you described it pretty well. So we had what I think is a pretty traditional, pretty typical roadmap planning model where once a year we'd sit down with a pretty small group of people and talk about what we should do over the next 12 to 18 months and kind of plot it out in a nice little Gantt chart, and here's what we're going to do when, and we would kind of roll into the following year and start executing on that. What we found though was that the process wasn't very transparent. People didn't really understand how something got to be on the roadmap or didn't, and it was also very rigid. So when we identified maybe a mid-year opportunity, it was pretty hard to take advantage of that because we didn't have a good process in place to say, let's do this instead of that, or how do we communicate that we want to do this because we think it's more compelling. So we kind of took a look at that and stepped back and really retooled almost the entire process, soup to nuts. And what we did is, we still do an annual alignment, but now we have an assessment team. And what we did is we put together an e-commerce assessment team, and it's cross-functional, so we have people from finance, operations, analytics, digital marketing, the commercial teams, the technology and UX teams, and we get together every month. So that full team, it's about 10 different leaders from the business. We meet monthly, and we have an assessment team meeting. And what we do there is we cover the status of the current roadmap, so what projects are landing and which ones are in process and if there's any at risk. But then we also take a look at any new opportunities. So we have an intake process for anybody pretty much in the organization to submit ideas or things they think we should be doing, and then the assessment team takes a look at those. So we take a high-level swing at effort, but we don't do any formal scoping or estimates or anything like that, and the assessment team takes a look at that and says, is this an opportunity we should be taking advantage of now, later, or maybe even never because it just doesn't fit? The real important piece is when we decide it's something we should do now. And then what we do is, as an assessment team, we decide together, what should we give up to do this thing instead? Or do we need to go back to the org and say, we need more resources, here's the thing that we need. But generally what happens is we can agree and calibrate and align as a team and say, we think we should do this thing because the impact is high, and we're willing to push these other things out or give them up entirely in order to do that. So the reason we did that is because we're finding it more and more challenging to keep up with the pace of shifting consumer behavior, and it's almost impossible now to truly identify 12 or 18 months out what you should be working on and what should be a priority. So with this model, we've put ourselves in a position to, I think, know every month and align as a team and calibrate walking out of that meeting that we're working on the right things at the right time, at the right priority level.
And you talked about mid-year opportunities. You had one of those last year.
We did.
Talk about Apple Pay and what that looked like to get that in, and also how it performed.
Absolutely, yeah. It's probably the best example we have so far of this agile process really working to benefit the business in a substantial way. I might get some of my timings wrong here, but I think around September of last year we actually got the note from Commerce Cloud that with the Apple Pay for websites, integration was available, and that was something we had been waiting for, frankly, and when it became available, we immediately spooled up that assessment team and said, we have this opportunity, we think we should take advantage of it, and we think it's important enough that we should do it before the holiday season gets here. So I think like a lot of other people, we freeze our code in the fourth quarter, but we said, let's extend that a little bit. Let's shift these other things into 2017 instead, and let's really just dive into this Apple Pay thing and get it right before the holidays. So we did that. We got it rolled out fairly quickly. Again, that's we were able to roll it out to all 12 brands within a week or two of actually getting the development done, and that's kind of attributed to our shared code base and scaled, leveraged model of how we kind of architect the entire ecosystem. But it was the right call. We had some really good success with that through the holidays. We think it moved the needle based on the data that we have, and we made that decision as a team. So
fantastic. And you talked about shifting consumer behavior. There's also the industry shifting. How do you stay current with your own performance and how you might be comparing to the industry overall?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that it's always top of mind for us. It's a challenge, right? Because I think everybody looks at their business a little bit differently, but benchmarking is really important to us. So one of the things that we love about Commerce Cloud, and even when we signed on initially when it was Demandware, is how much intelligence is built into just the cloud-based platform that collects all this data and can anonymize it and aggregate it and help us understand how do we sit in comparison with our peers. So we do a couple things that I think are probably the most important, and then there's maybe secondary things that we do as well. We pay real close attention to the shopper indexes that you guys put out, because we think that's a really good kind of bellwether for how things are moving and what the data looks like in aggregate. We also work with our account team to get some benchmarking data and some key performance indicators quarterly, so we can compare our mobile conversion to, say, a peer set that's relevant to us. So similar business models and similar maybe consumer demographics, we can take a look at that and say, how are we performing compared to our peers? We have a number of resources outside of Commerce Cloud, like we look at Dynatrace's retailer performance index and say, are our sites fast enough compared to the benchmark? So we really focus on benchmarking, and again, I can't say it enough, I think that's one of the biggest maybe underutilized resources of the Commerce Cloud ecosystem, is that data set, and like how can you compare yourself to it and know where you're strong and maybe where you have opportunities. And then we're big participants in the conference here. I think the other thing that's unique about the platform that I've really enjoyed is the community. I've made a number of friends that have similar jobs and similar challenges to the ones that we have and that my team has, and we try to make an effort to connect with them, not only here but throughout the year, and just say, hey, what are you guys doing? How are you thinking about this? And how are we comparing? So that kind of helps keep us honest on both sides of the fence, I think, internally as well as comparing us to the external.
Excellent. So last question to you, what's next? Both what's now and what's next in the next couple of cycles for you guys?
I can tell you what our current roadmap looks like. We don't have, like I said, because of this new planning process, it might be different in a few months depending on how things go. But right now we kind of think of our business in a few different key pillars. That regardless of the tactical things we kind of decide to carry out or execute, we know that over the next 12 to 18 months, these types of things are going to be important. So we're really focused right now on personalization, both from a site experience and content standpoint, but also just simple things like, are we giving people the right product recommendations in the right place at the right time? And how can we make that engine smarter and better and present those opportunities in the right places? The other things that we're focusing on are, we're really diving into conversion rate optimization. So we're doing a lot of A/B testing and user surveys and UX studies, partnering with usertesting.com and some other tool sets. And it's really creating a lot of synergy with our agile planning process, because if we learn something, now we have a great process to kick that into and say, hey guys, we just learned that when we do X, we see Y lift. We think we should roll this out as soon as we possibly can, and we have a nice process to catch that and adjust our roadmap. The other thing that we're focusing on is really diving into the lifetime value of the customer, because we think we have a lot of opportunity there. So those three buckets are pretty pervasive. The exact tactics kind of flux, but those are the things that are top of mind for our team at this point.
Excellent. Well, Jason, thanks for joining us today. And you mentioned the shopping index. You can find the shopping index at demandware.com/shopping-index. And thanks for your time today.